invite Miranda out on the stage. As I mentioned, she's done a lot of the groundwork to have this special guest join us today. So she's going to introduce him, and I'm going to pull up the slide deck.
Thanks, Kara. Okay, got it. All right. Hi, everyone. I know today has been a whirlwind day. There's been lots of learning and catching up, visiting and just laughing and seeing each other. I have really enjoyed seeing all of you after, it was a quick summer, but it also seemed like a long summer. So I hope you have a little bit of energy left after all of our learning and knowledge soaking in today that we had. Our guest speaker, I have been waiting to hear him on stage. We've talked a few times, texted and emailed, and it's been really enlightening. So let me introduce you to him. I'll read you his bio. I want to get it just right. Dr. Morgan Oakes is a transformational speaker and coach whose focus is elevating greatness. When we listen to our intuition and take courageously inspired action, our best life naturally unfolds. Dr. Morgan's motto is, I want for you what you want for yourself. His tools and skills include being a chiropractor, a certified high-performance coach, a neuro-linguistic programming practitioner. Dr. Morgan blends ancient wisdom with the tools of modern transformation to bring synergy and personal growth. Ladies and gentlemen, it is with great pleasure that we welcome our esteemed public speaker to the stage. His expertise and insights are sure to captivate and inspire us all. Without further ado, let's give a warm round of applause to Dr. Morgan Oakes. You want this one, right? Thank you. George is coming down. You want to roll with that and start?
Yeah, so let's do this to get started. I'll get a timer here so I honor everybody's time today. Again, thank you for allowing me to be here and be able to share this day with you. As I was moving through my day today, I was like, oh, everybody's already learning. I was tracking that you were going to be here around 8 a.m. And at these different points, I was like, I wonder what they're learning. I wonder how this weaves into what they already know. I wonder how this is maybe bringing some excitement up for the year, maybe a little bit of trepidation. And my goal today is really just to weave into what you're already doing and help support making this year be the best year for you. And I've been so excited to come in. When I found out that I was going to be speaking to you, I had spoken to Miranda a number of times to learn more. And is this working now?
We'll have to swap the batteries on it. Just stay on that one.
Okay. Yeah, so we'll do this and make it work. So I had had a number of conversations with Miranda, and I was so excited to come in because as we were doing this and she was sharing all the statistics, I was like, wow, you're feeding up to 19,000 kids per day. That's like twice the number of my hometown, and you're doing it every day. And she shared that they're getting breakfast, lunch, after school snack, dinner. Some of them are taking meals home for the weekend. And so give all of yourselves a big round of applause. I hope you know how amazing that is. You know, I heard about the fresh salad bar in every school, and I think most adults don't get to experience that either. So there's so many things I was already excited about, and then what I realized was at a certain point, my grandma was a lunch lady. Not for children, she was a lunch lady for the elderly. And so in this picture, this was in Thermopolis, Wyoming, and this was for the former cooks of the Wyoming Pioneer Home. My grandma, Betty Rouse, who's in not the top right, but just one in. So this is my mom's mom. There we go. This is my mom's mom, Grandma Betty. And so along with these other women, they worked there between 13 and 20 years helping serve people and make their day, right? So that part of me made me just feel really connected to all of you because yes, you're able to nourish and you're able to do so much for these kids, but you're also going to be this major staple in their lives. And right now, this is your life, right? I remember some of these ladies, some of my grandma's coworkers, some of them by name, some of them by face. I remember the visual of going to see the kitchen where she worked and the dining room where all this food got served. And we still have things at my mom's house that were gifted to my grandma during her time working there, right? So even, this is probably 50 years later, her grandson remembers her life doing this work. I remember the impact that she had, and I remember the pride that she had in the people that she was helping and the people that she was working with. So I feel really connected to all of you, and I'm so excited that you're able to show up and be such a big part for these kids' lives. You know, and I'm wondering, who here had a good summer? Who here had a great summer? All right, I love seeing that. And so, yes, today's about elevating greatness. And I'm glad for all of you that were able to raise your hands. And I want you to know that my big picture is that if I ran into one of you a year from now, you'll say, yes, I had a great school year, I had a great summer, that work was good, that my personal life was good. And as I'm coming up here, and you saw that first slide that said elevating greatness, you probably think that I'm here to help elevate your greatness at work. But I've got a little secret. So everybody lean in. This is just between you and I, so lean in just a little bit. The secret is, I got hired to come here and help elevate greatness at work for you. My passion is elevating greatness in your entire life. Right? So hold this conversation loosely today. I know that we can't have our life spread all over the place. Can't be like, oh, this is where I'm going to show up as grumpy me. This is where I show up as happy me. This is where I show up as highly energized me. This is where I show up as depleted me. Right? The more you can have all of your life congruent, the easier it is, and the more you're going to flow through it. So my goal today is to give you a lot of tools, yes, for work, but also personal life. So all the things I'm sharing, see where they land for you, right? Because I also know if we lift up in certain areas, it's going to lift all areas. So, the other thing is I was hired as a motivational speaker, right? And I think things like motivation and inspiration, those last for a few days, maybe a week or two. But a lot of times they're like a hot air balloon that goes up and never catches the wind, and it sets back down in the same field. Right, so my other goal for all of us today is actually transformation. There we go. And with transformation, it requires participation, one thing. So it's going to require some creativity and thinking, okay, how do I integrate this into my life? And I'm not going to give you 100 new things. I always know if I go to something like this, if I take away one thing, I know it can forever change the rest of my life. So what's that one thing that's going to really land with you today? And maybe you're tracking, I want to be the best parent that I can be. I want to be the best family member. I want to be the best coworker. Or maybe you can picture some kids from last year, or you're imagining some of the kids from this year, and you're like, I want to show up the best for them. Right? So all of these things we're going to play in, and transformation is about participation. So everybody that's willing to participate today, please raise your hand and say, that's great. Awesome. Thank you for being on this with me. And where am I supposed to point this? It is going, all right, there we go. We'll see if I can make this click through better. So what's going to happen, and we all know this, as we move through the school year, there's going to be difficulties that come up. There's going to be times where we spill the ice cream, and we know this is going to happen in our personal life. We know it's going to show up at work. And so with all the training and all the experience that this county has in producing all this food, they know the systems to make sure that these 19,000 kids get fed. And even within all that knowledge and all that wisdom and all the experience, there's times things are going to go sideways, right? And so how do we hold that? Now, this is a picture of the cake topper from my wedding that was about 5 weeks ago. So thank you, I got married July 1st for the first time. And this cake topper, I think, represents how messy my hair is in real life. And it also has us giving a high five. My now wife, I'm still getting used to saying that, loves giving high fives. I've given more of them in the last 2 or 3 years than I've given probably the last 20 years. And I think it's such a great way to celebrate things and actually get physically into it. And so a few times today, I'm going to ask you to give some high fives to each other. And I want to share a little bit of stories, a couple stories about the wedding, because this is one of those things that was very well planned, much like work, much like things in your life, that went sideways. Right? And as we were going into it, there were a number of things that, if you plan an outdoor wedding in July in Colorado, you should be fine. But as all of us know, not necessarily this year, right? And we were going to do this in a friend's backyard, and so we were watching the weather just change every single day coming up into it. And what we really had to do is just get out of anxiety about the things we can't control, like the weather. And we just came up with a solution. We got creative and said, you know what, if it's raining outside, we'll just go to where we're having the reception, and we'll do the wedding there, and we're just going to miss out on some dance time. Right? And as we were coming into the wedding, all these folding plastic chairs were supposed to show up the day before. They weren't there at noon. They weren't there at 3 p.m. I knew it was a Friday. This place is probably going to close. So we sent an email and left a voicemail. And at the end of the day, it was like 10 p.m., and the owner of the house called me. He's like, yeah, the chairs never showed up. I was like, there's that tendency to get frantic or to get angry or like, who do I need to send an email to, or I'm going to leave another voicemail. But the reality is it never really helps, right? It never really moves anything forward. And so what we did was we said, hey, we have enough folding chairs for everybody over 70. And for everybody else, we'll just treat it like an outdoor concert. If you want to bring some camp chairs, you want to bring a blanket, you want to stand at the back, it doesn't really matter. We're gathering there not for the perfection of it, but for the experience of it. Right? Now, the reality is those chairs showed up the next day. And you're going to experience this in a lot of different ways. The weather also worked out. Right? So how many things do you think might show up in the next 9 months where everybody gets frantic and there's stress and this thing isn't happening, but then at the end it does? Right? So that's a really good time to just slow things down. And something that I'll use in moments like this is my mind is all frantic, everything's running around, and I'll just take some breaths in and drop into my heart. And I'm going to teach you something around that's going to slow down your breathing, it's going to slow down your thoughts so you can get creative, speak kindly to each other, and make the best decision to move forward. I'll share more of that moving forward. Now, there were other things in the wedding that went sideways. Not they almost did, like the weather of the chairs, but the person that was supposed to sing at our wedding, this friend of ours, he wasn't at the rehearsal, and so the music ended up going in the wrong places during the wedding. Nobody noticed. And I was so blissed out just being there that it didn't matter, right? And I heard him doing a lot more falsetto, like, ooh, and I was like, oh my gosh, I've never heard him sing so beautiful. Well, he was on the verge of crying so much that he could barely hold it together to do the wedding. Nobody noticed, nobody cared. When it came time for me to repeat the things about the ring and all the beautiful ways I'm going to show up with my bride, our friend of ours, we had practiced the wedding, we had done the rehearsal, we had laid up everything for it to be perfect, and he started reading through that part like it was just a poem or something. And in the middle, he apologizes. He's like, oh my gosh, whoops, I'm so sorry. Well, I was so blissed out again. I didn't even know what he had done wrong, but I just laughed and said, well, take 2. And so he started reading it again, and he read like 3 lines, and then he stopped and looked at me, and I had no idea why he was looking at me. I had totally forgot the plan because we were in the middle of it. And so I got nudged that I was supposed to repeat after him, but I didn't remember what he had said, so he had to read it again. I am a perfectionist. You'd be shocked at how many hours I put in to make sure that I could deliver this properly to all of you today. But in moments like this, rather than getting upset or being frustrated or ruining the wedding for myself, for Stephanie, my bride, for anybody, we just laughed and kept rolling. And afterwards, what everybody said was, this was the most amazing wedding we'd ever been to. Right? They were touched. We wanted them to remind themselves of the love they have for maybe their spouse, their kids, their friends, their family. And so afterwards, what they remembered was how the wedding made them feel. These kids don't know what a wild morning you might have on that day when things go sideways. They don't know how much work was put in to get the food from the farm to the main kitchen, from the main kitchen to the school, from the school's freezer and or refrigerator, heated up and put into that perfect place. Those kids are going to remember how you make them feel, right? And like I said, this district has this long history of delivering this food. They know how to take care of the 19,000 kids by all of you showing up and doing your part. And what the kids are going to remember may not be the meal, but it might be remembering how you made them feel, right? And so we'll talk more about that. So a lot of times it's interesting to connect with the word greatness. You know, a lot of times I'll say it and people think of like a famous celebrity or a business owner or, you know, somebody that we've seen on social media all the time. But when I looked it up on Oxford Dictionary, it said, greatness is the quality of being great. And I was like, that is horrible. I literally laughed out loud when I saw that. Like, no teacher at any single school that you work at would accept this as an answer from a student. Greatness is being great. It goes a little bit further. And when I read that, I'm like, come on, Oxford Dictionary, you're better than that. So it also says distinguished or eminent. And when I read that, I thought of somebody with like a crown on their head, like a king or a queen from another country. But what eminent actually means is just somebody that you look up to, somebody that has positive qualities, right? And I can imagine for a lot of you that have already worked in this position or at these schools in this district, there's people that you already would describe as great. They're the ones that lift up everybody when they show up as far as their coworkers. They make the kids feel welcomed. They put special love and attention into the preparation or the cleanup through the processes. So I believe that you already have this foundation of greatness. Now, when I looked at the description on medium.com, I like this one better. One's work and actions, the way in which you impact the lives of others. Who here knows a great parent? Who here knows a great coworker, either at this job or another job you've had in the past? Who here has a great friend? Who here is a great friend? This is all of it. This is our lives we're living right now. My grandkids may not chat about this conversation we're having right now like I am about my grandmother, but maybe your kids and your grandkids are going to remember how you showed up at home and the experiences that you shared and the friendships that you developed with your coworkers and the special kids that stood out, that you were able to really be a special person in their lives. So I believe that we're already at that place of greatness, but there's more. So the idea of impact is a big one. And about 10 years ago, I was living in Seattle. I had moved there from Colorado. I lived in Fort Collins, and then I moved to Seattle, and then I moved back to get married. But when I was in Seattle, my dad had passed away. I had moved out there and accepted a job in the first lunch period, that's very school talk. The very first lunch break, he's yelling at all the employees, so I knew that I had to quit. You know, I had broken up, I had fallen out of a 4-year relationship, so it was like this perfect storm of all these highly stressful things, and my job as a chiropractor, and in this situation as well, is I show it up and I make it about you. So all these difficult things were going on, and I had to show up to work each day and be lifted up and bright and energized, and I had to support the healing of others. And so I was going out to this coffee shop just to get a boost, just to have something different in my life. And one day I went to go to this coffee shop. It was a little bit later in the afternoon, and they were closed. And it wasn't necessarily the best coffee shop, but I really liked their coffee, and I got in this habit. So I decided to go to another coffee shop. And when I showed up, the person at the cashier register was very friendly taking my order. Not like cheesy friendly, but like authentic friendly. Hey, how's your day? Oh, it's going good. And they asked me a couple questions. I placed the order. And then while they were making my coffee, there was a little bit of light conversation. Hey, what else do you have going on this afternoon? Just meaningless stuff, but it felt nice. They were making eye contact with me. They seemed to actually care about my answers. And then I received my coffee and I walked away and I was like, wow. And I can even feel it now. I can almost feel tears on behind my eyes. I can feel the hair standing up on the back of my neck because I was struggling so much at that point. That stood out. I didn't have many friends there either. I had just moved there. Right? And so I left that experience, and to be honest, the coffee was worse. The coffee was not better than the other place, not by a long shot. And the next time I needed a coffee, I went back to the other place, and they were kind of like these hipster coffee baristas, like too cool for school, no eye contact, no questions. They didn't actually care about me. And so I started going to the other place, and for months and months and months, I would go to this place a couple times a week because I knew they were going to make eye contact. I knew they were going to acknowledge me and ask benign questions about nothing that matters. In Seattle, they're always talking about rain, just like we are this year. So this coffee shop made an impact not based on the quality of their coffee, because of the quality of their connection. And they really helped me get through a very, very difficult time. And this, if you remember nothing else from today, this is the piece I want you to remember. There's kids that are going to come into your cafeterias because if they don't eat your food, they're not going to get other food. That's one thing. There are other kids that are going to come into your cafeteria, and you're going to know them maybe better than the teachers, right? You're going to see who walks in with a group of friends and who comes in on their own. You're going to see who's been upbeat for the first 2 months of the winter, and then they don't seem to be themselves. Your eye contact, your connection, even small and benign, might be the reason that some of these kids keep coming in for lunch. It might be the reason some of them stay in school. You might be giving them the only smile or connection without judgment, right? They're not getting graded by a teacher, and they're not getting judged by a family member or their peer group, right? You're going to be able to kind of love them in the way that you can, unconditionally. And you might be the reason at one point that they decide to stay on this planet. And I don't say that from a place of pressure. I say that from a place of what a blessing. When I was having those hardest days in Seattle, I got to show up, and it wasn't about me. I got to get my act together to show up and help these other people. And I'm doing great right now. I'm just so happy to finally be married. I made it almost to 50 years old without finding that person. So I'm happy right now. But if I hadn't been this morning, showing up for all of you would have got me to that place. By the end of those work days, I would forget about what I had going on in my own personal life, because I got to use that island of being of service as a place to kind of get a break from my own life. So I hope with all that I give here today, you'll be able to really lean in and go, wow, how do I support that coworker that's always great but hasn't been? How do I support that child that I know they're struggling, and I know how important this lunchroom is for them? Now, the other thing is, energy is super important. We all know who leads energetically. Who's that person that made everybody smile when they showed up today? Who's that person you've been missing since you've been away from work for a little while? You know, we see those kids, we know those people. When I show up at my new family functions with my new family, I know that Stephanie's dad, Pops, he's the guy that's always telling jokes. He's always funny. I'm like, oh, I can't wait to connect with Pops. Right? So we all have the opportunity to show up energetically and be that person. And what that requires is to have enough energy and to be in the right energy to give that. So let's go a little deeper into that. If we were going to drive this blue car, I don't know where this blue car is from, definitely not the US, probably Europe. The steering wheel might be on the wrong side of the car is what I'm saying. But if we were going to drive this car, you would need to know where the gas is, where the brakes are, and where to fuel it up. Those are 3 things I'm going to share with you so you can manage your own energy through the course of this next year, at home, at work, and in all the important parts of your life. So the first thing is, where do you put on the brakes? And I always think about this, if you're frantic, things got spun out a little bit, you're trying to track what happened at home, and you're trying to get the kids out the door, and traffic was horrible because it rained, and we're used to snow, it shouldn't be that hard to drive in the rain, right? But you get there and you're like, oh my gosh, I have 2 minutes, I'm on time, but you're frantic. How do you slow your mind down? And this is going to be a really big thing. So I'll demonstrate, and then I want all of us to participate. These aren't tools for today. This isn't inspiration. It's not motivation. Hopefully this will give you a tool that creates transformation. So it's breathing in a triangle. So let's say 4 seconds on the inhale, 4 seconds to hold, and then let's shoot for 8 seconds on the exhale. And then you can go right back into that inhale. If you need to do it faster, I don't want this to cause anxiety. I want this to be comfortable. But what this will do is it slows down the mind, slows down the lungs, and it allows everything to pause. You know when some of those movies go into slow motion? It brings that in so you can be really effective and centered. So let's do this together. 4 seconds in. Hold for 4 seconds. Out for 8 seconds. In again for 4. Hold for 4 if you can. Out for 8. Let's do one more. And back to normal. A few of you, if I could have taken pictures, it was like a commercial about bliss. Probably going to advertise some like candy or, I don't know, meditation product. Who here felt a change? I did that when I got out here today. The reality is I had like 20 pages of printed materials that I was tracking on my drive from Fort Collins over here, trying to make sure I don't forget the important things. Right? And my mind was doing, oh, you're going to forget this. Don't do that. What about this? And then I just did that breath in my truck so I could get ready. Another thing you can do is when you're doing that breath, you can just drop it down into your heart. And just kind of breathe from your heart. Sometimes you can put your hand on your heart to really connect with that. Now the second piece is, sometimes after I do that, I'm exhausted. I'm like, oh my God, I've been running on adrenaline. I've been going so fast I haven't been thinking. I actually need more energy, so where's the gas pedal? The gas pedal we're going to do with the bouncing breath. Now this one, I want all of us to be safe, but I want us to, let's do this seated. If we're in a room with tables and chairs, I would do this, but I don't want anybody to like fall forward onto their neighbors. So we're going to do this seated, and what this is going to look like is you're just going to be bouncing your feet. If you were standing, it would look like this. So you might have seen me walking across the parking lot like this coming in. If we had tables, we would do it like this. Being seated, you're just going to do it like this, okay? And we're going to do breaths in and out of the nose. We're going to do them faster than we would normally do them. If somebody's 6 seats away from you, I want them to be able to hear you breathing. If you get lightheaded, slow down. We're going to do 20 of these together. Is everybody ready? All right, let's go. I can see the ones that aren't participating. Join us. And 5 more. What are some words, you can shout them out, that you're feeling now? Ridiculous. Perfect. What else? I heard amazing. So I'll share some of my experiences. I'm sweating. My hair's standing up on end. God, my face feels flushed. I'm definitely a few degrees hotter. And I have this energy. I feel like maybe I should go clean the backyard, vacuum the carpet. I need to do something with this energy. All right? And that ridiculous piece, this job's going to ask you to go into those areas where you feel ridiculous. You're going to have to make food in a way that feels awkward and clumsy. You might have to interact with some awkward prepubescent children that when they're so awkward, they make you feel awkward, and you're going to be ridiculous enough to stay centered and show up for them the way that you need to, right? So I will use this breath to energize myself before I speak, coach, see chiropractic patients. I will do this once an hour some days. Some days I'll have that heavy meal, and then in the afternoon, I'm like, there is no way I can make it till 5. You can do this to bridge that gap. So that's where the gas is. And then the last piece, we need to know how to add fuel to this car. Doing the work you're going to be doing, especially if you haven't been doing or you've had a little break, might be exhausting. Right? And as you build up those muscles and get used to it, you're going to get better at it. And what I want you to do is have, yes, enough energy for the workday, but I also really want you to have enough energy to show up for your loved ones and for yourself, and not just come home depleted every night with the tank on E. And so I believe all of us are highly intuitive. I believe if I ask a question, The answer will pop into your mind without you even searching for it. So if you were going to have more energy every day at the end of the day and throughout the day, throughout this school year, even if it doesn't happen right away, what's one thing you would add into your life? Exercise, that's one of them. And this can be really simple. So as I'm listing through these, maybe see which one resonates with you. Like I said, it only takes one thing to change your life. Right? It might be, I'm exhausted every single day because I stay up too late watching Netflix. With no judgment, I love me a good, series that I'm like, well, if I do one more, I'll still get 4 hours of sleep tonight. We've all been there, and the reality is, those work days are tough, right? So what if it's like, I'm gonna commit to getting 7 to 9 hours of sleep every night? And what time would I have to go to bed? And what time would I have to get up to make that happen? And how would that change my life? I would say for a long time I was stuck at 7. I didn't think I had the extra time. And so I cut one thing out of my life, and for a week, I got 8 hours of sleep. Black lines under my eyes that I thought were normal went away. This when you hit the gas in a car and it sputters and then it goes? I realized that's the life I was living. And at that point, I didn't feel like I was able to hold that sleep schedule. So I went back to 7 and I just noticed the change. But then I changed my life in a way that made that happen. So maybe it's sleep. Maybe it's knowing that if you aren't drinking enough water, you're going to feel hungry and tired. Right? So maybe it's like, I'm just going to take my favorite water bottle to work every day and make sure that I finish it. Maybe it's sleep. Maybe it's water. Maybe for exercise, it's like, I used to feel really good when I did a walk every night after dinner, even like 10, 15 minutes. Right? Maybe it's just adding in a walk. Or maybe it's like, I used to get together with this friend and we would do a yoga class, or we would, do something that was just getting us in motion. And it might be, every time I eat that meal, I feel tired and sluggish for the next 4 hours. So I might leave those meals on the weekends or cut them out for a little bit and see how life changes. So does everybody have one thing they know they can do to add some more fuel to the car this year? Yes? All right. So the 3 G's of elevating greatness. These work together. 1, you're already gifted, meaning you're already great. The second is gratitude, and we'll go deeper into that. And the third is around goals, right? But they're not the goals you think, so I'll share those when we get there. The first piece is, a lot of times our life gets out of focus and we don't realize we're already gifted, we're already great, right? Like, who was able to make it here today? Yeah, what a blessing. How many people on the planet wouldn't have been able to get from your house to this venue? How many people have jobs right now? I mean, it sounds like a joke, but the reality is a lot of people, it's a weird time on the planet, right? Like, even just having a job that you get to come to is a gift. And I think the fact that each day you can lean into the impact that you're having on these kids makes it so much better than a job where maybe you can't be aware of that, all right? How about family and friends, people that you know that would really step up and show up for you? And maybe the inverse, how many people out there you know you would step up for, right? So the baseline is we're all already great. We're all already gifted. And this next piece is going to help us get more clear on that. So what these stones say is, it's not happiness that brings gratitude, it's gratitude that brings us happiness. Right? And I really believe gratitude is that thing that takes a good life to great without changing anything else. It's not changing your surroundings, the people you're around, where you live, your job, even your state of health. It's about gratitude. And we know based on all the research, if you have a gratitude practice, you're going to live longer, be healthier, be happier, experience more joy. The work that you do is going to feel more meaningful, right? So a couple things I want to share about a gratitude practice. One is, anytime maybe you've been looking to get like a new automobile or a new TV or something that you're wanting to get in your life, and then as soon as you start paying attention to it, you notice them all over the place, right? Like, oh my gosh, there's 5 of those in my neighborhood, and I have 3 friends that have those, and oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. The part of our brain that notices things gets really good at noticing things. Right? It's called the reticular activating system, RAS, but I think it stands for really awesome stuff. Right? So the person that always complains and notices what isn't working and complains about the rain when it's raining and the sunshine when it's sunny and the cold when it's cold and the heat when it's heat, those people are always going to find that thing to focus on, to say something negative about. And when we step into a gratitude practice, we're like, oh my gosh, the person at the gas station was so friendly to me today. And oh my gosh, like this thing worked out and I was able to get to work 10 minutes early, even in normal traffic. And wow, like my feet used to hurt after a work day, but right now they're feeling amazing. I haven't noticed them in a few weeks, right? It's those little pieces of gratitude that are going to start building that muscle of noticing the positive and the beautiful and the uplifting. So a way to really leverage this gratitude practice, the first 30 minutes after you wake up and the first 30 minutes before you go to bed. So like that 30 minutes after you wake up and the 30 minutes before you go to sleep, the state of your mind changes. It goes from like beta waves to theta waves. Doesn't really matter. The point is, your brain changes in a way that it's easier to be creative, it's easier to come up with new ideas, and it's really easy to change your beliefs and what's driving your life. So in that 30 minutes before you go to bed, if you do a gratitude practice, it goes past all the filth and muck and gets directly into the heart of things, right? So one way to do this is by journaling. You can write down 3 gratitudes a night. I'm really grateful that that neighbor that I didn't know was nice because he looks kind of grumpy said hi and really smiled at me the other day, so we can keep doing that. I'm really grateful that I have somebody at the grocery store that I can have conversations with as I'm checking out and they make me feel good. And I'm really great that this thing went sideways at work, but we all came together and it turned out really great, right? And if you try to change those every time, it just gets your mind more and more ready to find those other positive things moving forward. Now, the other way you can do this, I know families that do this with their kids at the dinner table. Yeah, what are you grateful for today? Doesn't have to be serious. Some kids are grateful for we threw some rocks in a field today. Awesome, right? I know that my wife and I have done this at long periods of time, like as we're getting ready to go to bed. Yeah, what are you grateful for today? And then we get to share and connect in a way that's meaningful beyond weather. Now the last piece is goals. And I said this isn't like normal goals. This isn't the type of goals that people write down and they're like, oh, I want to make this happen. Like I want to lose this weight or I want to go on this vacation. This is more like, what goal do you have for how you want to show up and who you want to be in the world? Right? Let's say somebody wanted to be the best parent. They'd say, okay, my goal is to be the best parent, and for that, I'm going to get up and make breakfast for my kid. I'm going to make sure that they have a ride to school, even if it's not me. And at night, I'm going to help them with their homework. Right? And so maybe that'll drive the things that you do, and if a decision comes up, you're like, wow, well, I really want to make sure I'm the best parent I can be, so I'm going to make the decision to do this thing. Right? And that's how you can look at this. So I had a friend, not a lunch lady, but he was a guy that was a cook for a sorority. This was in like 2005. I thought about him when I was preparing for you. And this guy would brag about what he would do at work. He's like, oh, dude, these girls love chicken wings, but frying them is so unhealthy. So he would brag about how he would bake them so they would be healthier. He was almost like a mom sneaking kale into the kids' dessert, right, and bragging about it on the side. And he'd be like, oh my gosh, I found this different way to order the foods, and I save enough money that I can give them these extra healthy treats so they can always make a good decision even out of mealtime. Like there were just all these things he would do that he really prided himself in, and he identified as being like the best house cook that he could be. Right? So how might that apply to your life? Maybe best parent you can be, or best spouse, or best friend. Maybe best person you could be for yourself, and what would that look like? How would you show up differently? What if you were the best coworker for these other amazing people that are sitting next to you? And how might you show up the best way for these kids? You know, maybe it's after a frantic morning because things went sideways and the deliveries were late and we had to move through these adversities. And like, I'm going to slow down, I'm going to walk around this corner, and I'm going to show up for these kids. And we all know the difference between a mouth that smiles and a mouth that smiles with the eyes. Can we do that right now? What's a mouth that smiles look like? And bring in the eyes. Yeah. It's softer, it's different, it's authentic. And even if the mouth smile isn't that big, the eye smile makes it land somewhere different. All right, so I want to share something else around goals. We'll see how this is going to work. I might actually sit down for this a little bit. So we talked about those brain waves changing before sleep, right? They slow down, they go into a theta wave. Well, I really like all the things that have been done for thousands of years because they work. And one of the things that works is with repetitive drumming, rattling, dancing, chanting. For any of this, it changes our brain state so that we're more able to be creative, come up with new ideas. We're able to implant those new messages into the unconscious mind. So this is like cheating. It's like doing this right before sleep or right after you wake up. So I'm going to do a little bit of drumming, and what I want you to do is visualize. I'm going to step you through your day a little bit. I want you to visualize the things that you're going to do, the activities, the smiles. Bring your eyes into it. We're going to go through a little bit of breathing, bringing that energy down to the heart. We're going to imagine a work day. So everybody, where you're at, nice and comfortable. Close your eyes. If at some point you get uncomfortable, just open your eyes, and we'll see if you can hear me enough. Everybody closing those eyes. Just a gentle visualization.